Hi, my name is Alicia, and you're watching the Reptile Rendezvous. So anyone who's been keeping reptiles for a decent amount of time knows that at some point, you just accumulate a lot of enclosures that you don't really know what to do with. This is usually due to the constant upgrades that you actually have to make when you have reptiles, and it just leaves you with random enclosures that you're trying to fill with animals, but you're not entirely sure what to fill with. And that probably led you here. You clicked on this video trying to figure out what reptile to fill that dusty enclosure that sits in the back of your garage with. First of all, give it a good clean, and then we can get onto the species on this list. I'll be talking about more common enclosure sizes, so if you don't actually see the size of enclosure you have on this list, try and base it roughly off of the measurements. Also, just a quick PSA, just because you have an empty enclosure does not mean you have to fill it, and if you do want to put an animal in there, make sure you're doing tons of research prior to doing so, because this video is not anywhere near a care guide for any of these animals. Now, in my opinion, anything under a 20-gallon enclosure is just honestly too small for any species, so we're going to be starting at 20 gallons. Now, in a 20-gallon long, so a 30 by 12 by 12 inch enclosure, I would actually recommend rubber boas. They are actually native to Western United States and British Columbia, Canada, which means they probably, if you are watching this video, might actually be native to where you live, as a lot of my viewers are actually from the United States. Males range from 18 to 21 inches in length, and females reach 23 to 26 inches in length, making females a little bit bigger than your males. Now, if you're looking for an animal who likes it a little bit cooler, these guys are actually perfect for you. With a hot side of 83 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit and a cool end of 65 degrees Fahrenheit, this is actually pretty achievable for most keepers. I think rubber boas are super cool because they're a small species of boa, but I will say if you can offer a bigger enclosure, I would highly recommend you do so. They would enjoy it. The only caveat is that you make sure it is highly secured, because these guys are known to be little escape artists. The next enclosure on this list is actually a 30-gallon tall, which is the enclosure on my right here. It is an 18 by 18 by 24. And unlike the crested gecko I actually have living in this enclosure, I would recommend dwarf sun gazer lizards. Now, these guys actually have a pretty big native range, being found in countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, Northeast Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. I hope I pronounced all of those correctly, but anyways, we'll move on. They are a diurnal species of arboreal lizard that can get from 7 to 10 inches in length, so that would make them a pretty entertaining species because most keepers want to be able to see their animals, and we are also diurnal species. Now, although they used to be common in the hobby, as of today, they are pretty hard to find, but if you are looking for an animal that none of your friends have, I would highly recommend sun gazer lizards. They need a basking temp of 93 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit and a cool end temp of 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not a huge level of difficulty when it comes to heating, so it'd definitely be something that's achievable for most keepers. And they are also insectivores, which actually makes them cooler in my opinion, because watching your animal go after insects is definitely more entertaining than them licking up gecko food. No offense, guys. I will say finding information on the species is kind of difficult. I even had trouble doing it for this video. So definitely make sure you're going through a lot of sources and research before you keep this animal, because there's a lot of conflicting information. The next enclosure on this list is a 40-gallon breeder, and I think this might be the most common enclosure that people just randomly have laying around, because a lot of times you start off your bigger animals in 40 gallons if you don't feel like starting them right off the bat on their larger enclosures. Now, for this enclosure size, some people might say leopard geckos. I think they should be housed in something a little bit bigger, so I would actually go with something more like a Chinese cave gecko. If you like the look of leopard geckos, they are pretty similar, but a little bit different at the same time, and I think that makes them more interesting. They are native to Northeast Vietnam, Southeast China, and Japan, and they are relatively small lizard, getting from 5.5 to 9.5 inches in length, and they can actually live 10 to 12 years. You can cohabitate them, but if you want to do so, you will need a bigger enclosure than a 40-gallon breeder, but it is possible. Now, for these guys, they actually like it a little cooler, with the hot side being from 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit and the cooler end being from 73 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. That being said, they do need a higher humidity with 50 to 90% at all times. Personally, I'd love to keep these little emo lizards someday. I think that they're super cool and interesting, and I really, really like their coloration. The next enclosure on this list is probably the one that you are least likely to have sitting around in your garage, and that is a 65-gallon enclosure, so a 24 by 18 by 36. But I kind of wanted something in between the 40-gallon and the last one on this list, so this was the best entry. Now, if you for some reason have one of these enclosures sitting around, I would actually recommend an emerald tree skink. They are native to Southeast Asia, with the mass of the population being found in the Philippines and Indonesia. They're arboreal lizards that grow from 8 to 10 inches in length and live up to 7 years in captivity. And from what I've heard, they are super sociable little lizards, and they're super entertaining to watch. So I think if you're looking for something that's like fun to watch, this is the lizard for you. Now again, like the cave geckos, you can cohabitate this species, but a larger enclosure would be needed to do so. I just think that that would be such a cool thing to do though, because these guys are so fun and sociable, so seeing them interact with each other would be really cool. Now, a little caveat of these guys is that they do need more than just UVB. These lizards specifically would also need LED lights, so as you can see possibly in the enclosure behind me, my crested gecko has an LED light and a UVB light because she does have a real plant in there. But the reason why emerald tree skinks actually need this, and not just because it's bioactive, is because they actually get so much light in the wild that a UVB is just not enough to sustain the amount of light they need. And when it comes to heating and humidity, it doesn't really get much easier. They need an average heat on their warm end of 95 degrees Fahrenheit and a cool end of 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And the humidity needs to be on average 70% during the day and a spike of 100% at night, which honestly, like other species who need a lot of humidity, that can be difficult if you're not used to doing it. I will say these guys are also insectivores, so watching these super crazy active animals eating insects would be super interesting. Finally, we're going to be talking about the enclosure size for your medium-sized reptile, and that is a 120-gallon long or a 48 by 24 by 24. Now, of course, I could go with the basics and say a ball python, a corn snake, a bearded dragon, but I wanted to do something that's still easy to find, sort of, but really a little bit cooler. So I'm gonna go with children's pythons. They are a terrestrial species of snake native to northern Australia, and they get from 30 to 36 inches and can live 20 to 30 years in captivity. So if you want a snake that's going to live with you for a very long time, this is the one for you. Now these guys like it hot. They like a basking spot of 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit and a cool end of 75 to 80 degrees. That being said, their humidity can range from 20 to 80%, so it's a little bit easier to maintain because there's that huge range there. I think this species of snake is super underrated, and I think they're so gorgeous and they really should be kept more, and I kind of hope they gain a little bit more popularity. So that's it for this list of reptiles you can keep in every enclosure size. If you enjoyed this video, I would definitely recommend you hit that subscribe button or that notification bell. YouTube actually tells me that 93% of you are not subscribed to my channel, which is honestly diabolical. Please hit that subscribe button if you want more content, because I feel like that's a crazy number. But again, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.